First tonight, delight and despair for two different families from Leicestershire. It's after the landmark legal judgment that overturned a man's conviction for murdering a former policeman.
It is 5 years since Paul Fyffe was stabbed to death in a flat in Leicester. But today the Supreme Court said one suspect didn't get a fair trial under so-called joint enterprise laws.
It means hundreds of people serving life for murder could now challenge their convictions. Our social affairs correspondent Jeremy Ball reports.
It was the news the Fyffes had been dreading.
The court is satisfied that the court took a wrong turn.
The widow and daughters of a murder victim watching a landmark judgment from their home in Old Dalby.
And it is the responsibility of this court to put the law right.
That means reopening the legal case against a man who was convicted of Paul's murder, a man who Paul helped after leaving the police to become a legal executive, a decision that's left his widow bewildered.
Very angry. Angry that we've got to go through everything again, that it just doesn't stop. We've had years of this, and we thought today we would get the final answer and we could move on, but it's not stopping.
There are two men who've been serving life sentences for murdering Paul Fyffe. Mohammed Hershey stabbed him through the chest, but Amin Jogee was convicted too under so-called joint enterprise, a law that's often used against gang members who carry out killings together. The trial heard that Jogee was outside, egging his friend on with a bottle as the stabbing took place indoors. But now his conviction's been ruled unsafe because the original jury was misdirected about joint enterprise law. They were wrongly told that Jogee could be guilty of murder if he merely realised it was possible his friend could kill.
I'd never even heard of the law until it was actually applied to my son's case. He wasn't even in the property, he wasn't aware of that man's actions. And I'm just so pleased with the outcome today. I'm just so looking forward to him coming home.
He encouraged it, he let it happen, and he left him to die. So, to me, he's a murderer and always will be.
But now the heartache begins again for the Fyffes as the Supreme Court considers whether Jogee's conviction should be downgraded to manslaughter or whether he should face a new murder trial in front of another jury.
And Jeremy's in the studio. Jeremy, how unusual is it for this joint enterprise law to be used in murder cases?
Well, it's a very old law, but in the last few years it's been used in several hundred murder cases to convict people of taking part in killings as a group. And there have been some notorious cases here in the East Midlands, like the murder of Danielle Becken, the schoolgirl who was killed in a drive-by shooting after visiting Nottingham's Goose Fair. Now, in her case, joint enterprise was used to convict both the gunman and the driver of murder. There was another case in Derby involving a teenager called Kadeen Blackwood who was shot dead in a fight in Caxton Park. In his case, the gunman's friend ended up serving almost 6 years in jail for joint enterprise murder, but then he was cleared and freed at a retrial. And back in Nottingham, there were several joint enterprise murder trials after the fatal shooting of Kadeen Blackwood. Now, in that case, two men had to be extradited from Jamaica and from the States, and they were accused of being part of a gang that killed Malachi. Only the gunman was convicted in that case, though, and today's landmark ruling is going to make it much more difficult to use joint enterprise to jail accomplices for murder.
OK, Jeremy Ball, thank you.